Hello, SpongeGex here. Hard to believe it's been a few years already since Super Smash Bros. Ultimate came out, and about a year ago since the final DLC character was added to the roster. I've wanted to do a video like this for years, but since it was unpredictable when the DLC updates were going to end back then, I chose to wait it out. But now that we finally have the final edition, I thought now would be a good time to share my thoughts on each fighter in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I will not be including the Mii fighters since they are characters with custom movesets, and it would take forever to make a video showcasing all the different moveset combinations. Besides, the Mii movesets really aren't very good anyways. They're mostly just rehashes of other moves from other characters. I originally wanted to make this into a worst to best character list, but that would take way too long and would be kind of complicated to make. So either way, this video is just my personal opinion. So sorry if you feel differently about certain characters I may or may not like. Up first we have Mario. Overall, I think he's a great all-around character with great close combat abilities, and although his fireball ability isn't very powerful, it's still very fun to kind of just bounce it around from a distance. And I love his up recovery where he does the high jump. It's a great uppercut attack. I'd say my biggest gripe with Mario, especially compared to the previous entries, is how they replace his down tornado attack with Flood from Mario Sunshine. He's supposed to be used to push weak enemies over a cliff or something, but most of the time when I try using it, it never works. It might be more usable in gimmicky levels where you want to push someone into a death trap or something. Otherwise, I find it to be a very forgettable item. I think his final smash is great, though, where he shoots out, that big blast of fire. It's a great attack, and I like his throw attacks, even. I like how one of them is clearly a nod to Mario 64, when he was swinging Bowser by the tail and all that. And, so, yeah, overall, Mario, he's a pretty decent character. He would definitely be, at least in my top 10, maybe. Onto Donkey Kong. So, Donkey Kong is a heavy close combat fighter, and overall, I think he's pretty good. He might be kind of slow, but his attacks are very powerful and have quite a great reach. I mean, what do you expect? He's an oversized gorilla, and you never want to mess with a gorilla. I like how he's one of the only few characters who can actually walk while picking up characters. He can only do it when, moving forward while holding them, though, but otherwise, I like his rapid slap attack, his down special, his up special, and his final smash was a huge improvement in this, where he shoots out, the rapid punch attack from Donkey Kong Jungle Beat instead of the weak and slow bongo attack he had in some of the previous games. So, yeah, that was quite an improvement. Up next, we have Link from The Legend of Zelda, as he appeared in Breath of the Wild, and I don't know, honestly, I felt like his moveset here was a total downgrade compared to how it was in, even the very first Super Smash Bros. I don't know, I think some of the ideas are kind of cool, though. I like the remote bombs, but there's just something about, the way he attacks, and, especially his voice, I don't know. I just feel like it feels like a total downgrade compared to what you heard in, Super Smash Bros. Brawl or Wii U. I loved, his redesign in the Wii U version, and I felt like, just basing it on Breath of the Wild because, oh, it's popular. I don't know. Wasn't a huge fan of that. Yes, I know you can technically swap to Link's outfit to look more traditional, but it looks wrong. It doesn't look like a proper modeled version of it. It just looks like a bad reskin. Otherwise, he has, the simple attacks, like the bow and arrow, the boomerang, and all that. Otherwise, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this version of Link, per se, and I think he also has a terrible final smash this time around. The light arrows are incredibly weak, despite how they're pretty powerful in the game they're from. Now, Samus is a pretty cool fighter. The projectile attack, especially the charge shot, is really cool. I even like some of her smash attacks, where she smashes her arm cannon into the opponents, or the one where she blasts downward, and I do think the one where she shoots upward, while it's cool, it's not very powerful, though. It's not good for launching enemies, but, her kick attack is really good. I like the screw attack, the up special, but her down special, where she drops the little bombs, I think they're very weak. I like her whip grab attack, it's pretty cool, and her final smash isn't too bad. Now, as for her Echo Fighter, Dark Samus, yeah, I think it's kind of cool. It mostly is an exact replica of Samus, but with a darker edge, but I like how they gave her unique animations, and even her taunts are different, so That's more that could be said about some of the other Echo fighters or clone fighters in this game. So at least they gave Dark Samus some more style. Now, Yoshi was not only one of my favorite Mario characters, but he was also one of my favorite characters to play in the original Smash Brothers and even Melee. I think overall Yoshi is a great fighter. He's got great speed, great rapid, powerful attacks. The problem is that it's cool how he has like this really cool, you know, high double jump, but the problem is that because his jump is so high, they sacrifice it by giving him less recovery. He does get a little bit of a boost if you throw eggs while jumping in midair, but it's not a whole lot, but it does give him a little bit of extra boost airtime. I'm not a big fan of his attack where he eats the enemies and turns them into eggs, but I love how his grab attacks are where he gulps people up with his tongue or spits them out, or, you know, it's pretty fun. His down special, the Yoshi Bomb, is pretty fun. Just a fun little drop attack, and his final smash, I love how it's a great tribute to the opening to Super Smash Bros. Melee with the Yoshi Stampede. Using it as an attack was brilliant. I did like his Dragon Yoshi ability from Brawl and all that, but it's still a fun replica. I do like it. Kirby is a great character, and I was introduced to him because of Super Smash Bros. On N64, followed by Kirby 64. I did not grow up in the eras before that, so, you know, N64 was like my first console, so... But Smash Bros. Introduced me to Kirby, and boy, did it. I loved, like, when I learned, like, he had the copy abilities where he could eat his opponents and take their default B special. That was a lot of fun. But even the rest of his moves are really fun. Kind of inspired by some of his copy abilities. Like, he got a little bit of inspiration from, like, Hammer Kirby, Burn Kirby, or what's now known as Fire Kirby, Cutter Kirby, and even Rock Kirby. I like how, like, overpowered his throw attacks are, like how he really launches people. So the only big downside I have with Kirby, though, is he is a very lightweight character, which means he's very easy to knock around. Otherwise, his attack power almost makes up for his weak defense. He is a pretty overpowered character, although he doesn't have the best attack range. And I love how his final smash is the final cutter form from Kirby Return to Dreamland. That was a great replacement for the other ones. Now, Fox, while I'm not a huge fan of his redesign here, like, I really hate how ever since Star Fox Command and Zero, they've been going with this weird design for Fox. I don't really like it. I was more of a fan of his Star Fox Adventures and Assault design, to be honest, but otherwise, I do like his moveset, though. I like his rapid kicks and all that, and like his fiery up special, his reflector. His laser attack, while it is pretty weak, it's still kind of cool. I like some of his throw attacks, especially the ones where, like, he pins the guys to the ground and starts shooting at them, or launches them in the air and starts shooting them. Those are fun little throw attacks. I always love the throw attacks that have some, you know, more than just a character throwing a character simply, which you'll see just way too much of. And I do think his final smash here is a huge improvement over the previous ones. The Landmaster, it was cool at first, but then it just dragged on way too long, and not to mention how there were some levels that clearly weren't built for the Landmaster. And so, while I do think a lot of the final smashes in Ultimate are downgrades from like what you had in Brawl or previous ones, I can't deny that Fox's was a huge improvement. Now, just like with Kirby, Super Smash Bros. Was also my introduction to Pokemon as a kid. I mean, I saw the commercials back then, but I never played any of the games, and I never wanted to get into the games until I played Smash Brothers. And so, Pikachu, he's, what do you expect? He's a cute and very deadly character. I love all of his electrical and tail whip-based attacks. His down special, though, is like one of the most broken attacks ever, especially in the original games. Like, if people would spam Thunder, it's like almost no one had a chance at fighting back against Pikachu. And I'd say the only thing I don't care too much about for Pikachu is his up special, which is the quick attack. And I do like how ever since Melee, they gave it a little bit of a hit damage, but the fact it doesn't cause any knockback or anything. And admittedly, it was hard for me to figure out as a kid. I didn't realize like what you had to do to cause like the second one to trigger, like how you have to tilt the control stick in a certain direction at the right time. So it was tricky to figure out as a kid, but over the years, I figured it out on my own. And his final smash is a huge improvement here over... I hated Volt Tackle in Brawl, Wii U, and 3DS, and making it an automatic attack that you don't have to worry about steering was a huge improvement. Now, a lot of us know what a clone character is. It's when you take, like, assets or, like, codes of a certain character or even designs of a certain character, and you reapply them to another character to save time and money. And so, Luigi is one of the rare cases where you could consider him a clone character, but he's still very unique enough to be considered his own thing. Well, he definitely borrows a lot from Mario. They restylized it, and especially in the later games where... You know, ever since Luigi's Mansion, they started giving Luigi more of a personality, where he's more of a goofy but timid character. And so, you see a lot of that stuff, like, carried over into the modern games. They kind of make it look like he's a little bit clumsy. His controls are a lot more slippery. Like, the facial expressions he makes especially kind of shows that he's not the most confident fighter. But you just can't help but love how it adds so much personality. And so, I do think, like, I love how overpowered his up special is. I just hate how slow the sync time is, like, for when he lowers back to the ground and all that. I like how his fireballs shoot straight out instead of bouncing like Mario's. And overall, Luigi's a great fighter. Now, I apologize to all you Earthbound fans, but I am not the biggest fan of Ness, both playing as him and especially fighting against him. I do think some of his psychic powers are okay. I just wish his voice wasn't so annoying, but, I mean, you got, like, the PK Blast, PK Freeze, PK Thunder. PK Thunder, it took me forever as a kid to figure out how to use that as an up special recovery. And then it took me even longer to realize that his down special was, like, some kind of healing item where it could absorb projectiles and heal Ness a little bit. Otherwise, I think, like, Ness is just one of the most broken characters. Like, you go online, people just keep spamming PK Fire, to the point where you never want to fight Ness again, because he's so annoying. And then his final smash is even overpowered with the PK Starstorm. It's like, there are some final smashes that are very easy to dodge if you're lucky. This is one where it's like, good luck dodging that. It's like, it's easier to dodge if you're in the training level, because it's a oversized level. None of the levels in the game come close to the size of the training level, but, yeah. Captain Falcon, just like a lot of the other games in Smash Brothers, I didn't know what F-Zero was until after playing Smash Bros. 64, and I remember when I first saw Captain Falcon, I laughed. I don't know why, but I just laughed, like, every time he shouted Falcon Punch or Falcon Kick. It just made it, like, honestly, I was thinking this guy came from, like, a really goofy comic book superhero game. To find out he's from some kind of futuristic racing game, that was honestly pretty jarring, but... It's funny, though, how Captain Falcon's supposed to be, like, a real serious character, but this game just presented him as kind of like a joke. You know, a bunch of memes have spawned out of, like, the Falcon Punch or Falcon Kick, and so, while I don't really care too much for playing as Captain Falcon, I do admit he is a memorable character. I'm not the biggest fan of F-Zero either. I tried out many of the entries, and it's just not for me. I'm more of a Mario Kart person, but I will admit the vehicles and some of the track designs are cool, but I'm just not a fan of the gameplay very much. It's a little too tricky for me. Now, at least when going back to the first Smash Bros., Jigglypuff used to be my most hated character. Like, over the years, I grew to love Jigglypuff as a Pokemon, per se. I mean, she may not be, like, a very powerful Pokemon, but she definitely had a memorable presence with her little appearances in the anime, and, you know, she is kind of adorable, but I just felt she was a very questionable character, especially in the first Smash Brothers, when she didn't have the overpowered rollout attack, but I thought her attacks were just way too, either slow or weak, and, I felt like, you know, the singing, spell didn't last long enough, and then the rest thing felt so pointless. You learn that if you use it, like, when jumping on top of an enemy and timing it just right, that you can knock them almost, like, out automatically. But even then, I really don't think Jigglypuff is that great of a character. Like, I keep wondering, why do they keep bringing her back? Otherwise, it's like, if you know how to use her, she can be fun for beginners, at least. She's, you know, she's almost like, a more basic version of Kirby. That being said, though, her final smash still sucks. They had a chance to buff it up, and they just made it dumber than ever. Princess Peach, one of the first characters revealed for Super Smash Bros. Melee. And, yeah, hard to believe she wasn't in the original. The only female character in the original was Samus, and a lot of people didn't even realize Samus was a woman at the time. Or, maybe Jigglypuff is female. You can never tell, because Jigglypuff can be either male or female. But, so, Peach, though, I honestly really like Peach as a character in this game. I have her to thank for finishing off the hardest difficulty of the Final Fortress from Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, you know, the hardest boss fight in the game. I have Peach to thank for delivering the finishing blow, and I just think Peach's attacks are really great, very defensive, very powerful. I like her floating abilities and all of that. I do think the umbrella though is a little too slow. However, as much as I like Peach as a fighter, I cannot stand her final smash. It is just so stupid. She puts everyone to sleep and causes a bunch of healing items that power up, which can also, you know, heal your enemies in the process if they manage to wake up fast enough. And so it's like that's one of the few final smashes I can think of where it can backfire on the player. And then, oh, don't get me started on Daisy. The idea of having Daisy be a playable character wasn't a bad idea, but really, they had to make her an exact clone of Peach. I remember how, there were people complaining that, oh, Daisy will never make it into Smash Bros. And so, hardcore Daisy fans would say, oh, she would be in it, and she would not be another Peach clone. She's, you know, her own unique character. And then, Sakurai really had to troll them by putting her in there and then making her an exact clone of Peach. Even with a Toad. Daisy doesn't even have a Toad servant. She's not the princess of the Mushroom Kingdom. What the heck? So, I don't know. Honestly, I would have rather they made a moveset inspired by either Mario Party or the Mario Sport games or something. But just copying Peach's moveset and adding Daisy's voice clips just felt kind of lazy, to be honest. I just wasn't a big fan of... I mean, good for Daisy fans that Daisy's in here, but it's almost kind of an insult that she's in here, just being an exact clone of Peach. Really sucks, to be honest. Thank goodness for the buffed-up version of Bowser we got in the Wii U and 3DS version of Smash Bros. Because, back then, Bowser was kind of hard to play as. He was a character you wanted to play as, but he was just too slow and kind of embarrassing. Like, the way he moved, what was with that butt scoot ability he had in the old games? But, oh man, the way they buffed him out, he's faster now, more fiercer. I just love what they did with Bowser. I'd say my only complaint with his ultimate appearance, aside from his voice, which was never really good in the Smash Bros. Games, for some reason Sakurai just always wants to make the big beastly characters have more animal-like voices instead of using their traditional voices, and I think it just does not work for characters like Bowser. And I mean, Bowser's had some beast-like voices before, like in the N64 era. Why didn't they just recycle those sound clips? They were better than whatever the heck noises he's making here. But also, I think his Final Smash is a huge downgrade here. It's still Giga Bowser, but I liked when you actually got to control Giga Bowser instead of just aiming for him to punch. It is kind of cool, though, how they tried making it a little bit of a tribute to the final battle against a giant baby Bowser from Yoshi's Island, but I don't know. Just, I felt like, just a total downgrade from the Giga Bowser we got in Brawl and Wii U 3DS. Talk about another set of characters I'd never heard of until Smash Brothers, the Ice Climbers. So, I really want to like these guys. There's something cool about, having a team of characters where you're controlling two characters at once, but you really aren't. You're controlling one character who slowly mimics your movement, and so that can cause a problem when the only way to use an up special is to make sure that your partner is still alive. If your main character's sister, dies, then you're basically helpless. You can't, jump really high anymore, and I mean, I love the idea of, having double the attack power when your partner's there and all that, but the fact that it comes at the expense of not being able to use an up special, and if I recall, you can't even use the grab attack if you're the only one available. I don't know why, but yeah, otherwise, some of the attacks are cool, though, freezing, the shooting the little ice things with the hammers and all that, all fine abilities. The final smash, though, it really sucks. It just causes a giant iceberg to grow out of the ground. I like how you can control the direction of the iceberg by actually moving your characters around, but it makes it kind of tricky to keep an eye on both your character and that distracting iceberg at the same time. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of these characters, to be honest. Now, I apologize. I know she's a popular character, but I never really got the appeal of Sheik very much. I will say, though, I do think some of her kick attacks are really cool. I just don't think she's that tough, though. It's all she has going for her is speed. Otherwise, speed and style, but I just don't feel like her attacks do much damage. I will say, though, I don't care about the big changes they made with her, though. The fact that she can no longer switch between herself and her Zelda, her true form Zelda, or the fact they got rid of her chain whip attack or whatever. I don't care about any of that stuff. I honestly think she's more fun to play as in the modern games compared to how she played in Melee, but I just don't think she's that great of a character, though, overall. I think, you know, there are characters with similar abilities that are much better. But yeah, basically you could say she was the first kind of fighter to have some kind of, like, ninjutsu-inspired, combat. I'm also not a big fan of her Final Smash. I swear, how many characters have this exact same Final Smash, where they just do a bunch of slashes, they do, like, a big pause, and then give off the finishing blow? It's tiring. Get used to seeing, like, a very similar Final Smash throughout this video. Okay, Zelda, on the other hand, I've heard a lot of people say they like playing as Sheik more than Zelda, and I'm the other way around. I actually like playing as Zelda more. My only complaint with Zelda in this game, though, is, you know, I liked how, in Brawl in Forward, they had, the Zelda from Twilight Princess. That was honestly one of my favorite versions of Zelda, and then they basically de-aged her and turned her into the one from, the sequel to A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds. So, basically, we're playing as young Zelda here, and otherwise, I think her moveset is fine, though. Like, I like the barrier attack, the flame attack. I like how they're all based on, like, the little, fairy spells that Link got in Ocarina of Time. That's kind of cool. And then they even added, like, the guard from, like, one of the Wind Waker spin-offs, or sequels, I mean, and her Final Smash is pretty cool, where it just sucks them into the Triforce of Wisdom. It's kind of cool. Now, Dr. Mario can mostly be considered more of like how Mario played in the original Smash Brothers, except they made him slower and heavier, but more powerful. Although his default fireball attack being replaced with the pills, if I recall, that's actually weaker, but the rest of his attacks are much more powerful. Instead of attacking with fire, he attacks with electricity now, and I think, you know, concept-wise, I think having Dr. Mario as a playable character was a stupid idea, but I will admit, though, just because I liked Mario's moveset a lot better in the original Smash Bros. And Melee, I will say I enjoy playing as Dr. Mario more than regular Mario, even if he is a little bit slower. But, like, his down special's a lot better. His Final Smash is almost exactly the same, except they replaced the flames with pills. I don't like how in this one they made the pills look pixelated, or a pixelated trail. I liked it better when they tried making it look more detailed, like in Brawl. Well, not Brawl, but Wii U and 3DS, I should say. Now, I've heard people consider Pichu to be the worst character in Smash Bros. History, and I wouldn't go that far. Pichu is a very powerful character. The problem is that he's just so inexperienced that he doesn't know how to control his powers, so every time he uses them, he ends up hurting himself. I mean, you could say it's because he's a baby and he's too eager to get into the battle and all that. But he's basically just a clone of Pikachu, a lot faster and stronger, but at the expense of hurting himself. So you could say Pikachu's the more experienced fighter, where Peach's the more reckless, level-headed one who doesn't listen. You know, he just wants to rush in there and grow old before... Well, you know, it's like a kid who thinks that they're mature, but they're not. That's what I see in Pichu. I do think Pichu isn't a bad character to play as, though, but it's one that you wouldn't really want to recommend in, like, competitive play, since he's real easy to launch around. But otherwise, yeah, I'd choose playing Pikachu over Pichu, but I don't think Pichu is the worst character like some people say. I will say he probably is towards the bottom of the list, though, but I don't think he's as bad as people say. Now, I remember when I heard that Falco was a hidden character in Melee, I thought that was so cool. And, well, I don't hate Falco as a playable character. I think he's a total downgrade compared to Fox. The only thing I think he has really going for him is his, like, reflector shield, how it, like, extends, and then his, blast attack, while it's much slower, it's definitely a little more powerful. I'd say Fox's is definitely more useful, though. His rapid fire can cause more damage quicker compared to Falco's slow shooting, but my biggest problem with Falco, though, is aside from almost being like an exact replica of Fox moveset-wise, he's just too slow and floaty. I don't really like that. And then his Final Smash is like the exact same thing. And it was bad enough it was the exact same thing in Brawl and every other sequel since, but they had to do the same with Ultimate. Come on. I do think his is more stylized than Fox's. I like how he's spinning his R-Wing while shooting. It's kind of cool. Okay, I'm just going to get this out of the way. I am not the biggest fan of the Fire Emblem characters in Smash Brothers. I just feel like these characters are just some of the most worn-out characters in this game. Just characters with swords, especially anime-looking characters with swords. Especially blue-haired anime characters with swords. So you already got a character like Link. His main gimmick is he has a sword. But, oh, look what else he can do. He can throw bombs. He can shoot bow and arrows, throw a boomerang, use a grappling hook. What can Marth do? Stab, stab, and stab. Oh, and did I mention he can stab? Oh, and he can use a real annoying counterattack, and... God, that's one of the most, like, annoying moves that was... You know, it was used in Melee, but sparingly. The counterattacks. And it wasn't until Brawl in every sequel since where... It feels like when they run out of an idea for what kind of move to give to a character, or they're too lazy to come up with a better move, just give them a counterattack. It's always going to be their down special. And I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of that. I will say, though, if I were to choose between the two, though, I'd say I like Lucina better, just because I actually like the game she's from. I never played the original Fire Emblem with Marth, but I did play Fire Emblem Awakening. That's the only Fire Emblem game I actually own, and I actually liked it. I thought Lucina was a very strong character. I love the reveal that she was Crom's daughter from the future. That was pretty cool. So, yeah, character-wise, I like Lucina, but moveset-wise, it's mostly just Marth again. No big deal. The final smash is, well, kind of creative. A nice reference to the games they're from. Still kind of wimpy overall. I remember when I learned that Young Link was a hidden character in Super Smash Bros. Melee. I thought that was so cool, how you finally got to play as both Adult Link and Young Link, even have them fight each other. That was kind of cool, and I still love Young Link to this day. I was so mad when they replaced him in Brawl, Wii U, and 3DS with Toon Link, and so I was so glad they brought him back in this game. I love, like, the flaming arrows. I like how his up special kind of sucks enemies inward into his spinning vortex. It's pretty cool. I'd say my only complaint, though, is his down smash, or his down tilt smash, where he stabs the sword downward, is much slower than how it is for Link or Toon Link. That's one thing I will admit Toon Link has better. He has the best, like, down sword thrust attack, but overall, I'd actually say I enjoy playing as Young Link more than regular Link in this game. And I like how he uses the same final smash that Link had in ever since Brawl. Well, I do think moveset-wise, Ultimate's version of Ganondorf is the best he's ever played. I still think Ganondorf is always wasted opportunity. They could have easily taken a moveset inspired by his attacks from Ocarina of Time, like shooting the lightning balls and all that, or mixing it in with some of his boss fights from Twilight Princess, stuff like that, like how he actually fought with, like, swords and all that. And, well, they did try doing that in this game. They did, it felt more like a stylization, though. They replaced some of his original smash attacks where he'd swing his arm around. They added a sword in there for additional measure. So, I do like how they tried spicing him up a little bit. They even tried bringing back his Ocarina of Time design, but they tried mixing it in with his weak voice from, you know, the modern games, which just does not mix very well. I mean, his voice from Ocarina of Time was so iconic, and it feels so downgraded in this. It feels like an old man, like, having, like, a dried-up cough or something. That's what he sounds like now. Otherwise, Gandorf, he's a cool character, but he's basically just a very slow, heavy Captain Falcon clone, with a very different Final Smash, though, where he turns into Beast Cannon. That's cool and all, but I wish we got more of a moveset inspired by Ocarina of Time. Mewtwo was one of the most hardest and sought-after characters to get in Super Smash Bros. Melee. I remember, like, just, like, thinking I was never going to unlock him when I was a kid, and when I did, I was so excited, only to be disappointed in the end. I don't know, like, Mewtwo's a cool Pokemon, but I felt like a lot of his attacks just didn't work the way I wanted them to. I felt like why did they have Disable be one of his moves, and I don't know, there's just so many attacks, like, I just felt like, oh, I'm jumping at an enemy, I'm gonna attack them, and his attack misses, or I just didn't like the way they set up his moveset here. I do think it's a little more powerful in the modern games compared to how he was in Melee. I felt like he was very weak in Melee. He's definitely a little more buffed up in these modern games, but I still would have liked to have changed his moveset a little bit better. Like, I think, like, Disable or the Confusion ability is very useless. Teleport, even. It's like Shadow Ball's okay, though, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of his moves are kind of a bummer. And then his final smash, not to mention. Really, they chose for it to be Mega Mewtwo Y. Why not X instead? I thought the X Mewtwo form was so much better. I don't like the Y Mewtwo form at all, both design-wise, and I don't know. I just would have preferred the X form. Now, while I'm not the biggest fan of the Fire Emblem characters, I actually can see the appeal and why people liked Roy, at least. especially why people liked him over Marth. And I'll never understand why Nintendo basically replaced Roy with Marth ever since Brawl, Wii U, and 3DS up until the DLC came out. But so Roy is mostly a Marth clone, but he's got a more explosive, fiery, edge to his sword. Hence the name Fire Emblem, I guess. I don't know, but otherwise, I do enjoy playing as Roy more than Marth. I'm not the biggest fan of these sword-wielding characters, but I do see the appeal of Roy. And his Echo Fighter, Chrome, isn't too bad. Again, he's a character from Fire Emblem Awakening, the father of Lucina, and I like how, although he is an Echo Fighter to Roy, he's not an exact clone of him. He has a little bit of inspiration from the character Ike as well, with his Up special, and so, yeah, decent characters, I guess. I'd prefer playing as them over Marth. Again, like many other characters from Smash Bros., I had no idea who Mr. Gaiman Watch was until I unlocked him in Melee. He is like one of the last characters you gotta unlock, like, right after Mewtwo. And, yeah, like, he was only accessible after you've unlocked all the other characters, and so I thought the idea of him was bizarre, though. I remember, like, his design just boggled me. The fact that he was a flat character fighting alongside 3D characters, it was such a cool gimmick. Like, he is very lightweight, though. He's very easy to knock around, but I do think his moveset is really fun and creative, and it's especially more fun when you learn more about the history of Gaiman Watch. Like, you learn about how they were, like, these old little games, and how all of his moves are inspired by some of the controls from those games. It's a really fun idea. And then the final smash where he turns into the octopus monster from the Octopus game. Kind of funny. I do think, like, they heavily improved him in Ultimate, though. Like, the bomb drop attack and all that is a fun addition. Or the fact he transforms, shape-shifts, like, whenever he uses an attack to look more like the characters from the games he's from. That's a fun little touch. Personally, I think when it comes to flat, big-nosed characters, I would have preferred Paper Mario, though. Remember when Meta Knight used to be, like, the most broken character ever, that he was banned from Smash tournaments? But, so, Meta Knight, yeah, that was a character I wanted ever since I saw the Kirby anime series. I was like, oh, they gotta add Meta Knight into the show eventually. I mean, the games eventually, and so, I wasn't introduced to Meta Knight in the video games until I played Kirby Air Ride or Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland. I didn't grow up with the classic Kirby games, so, the first Kirby game I played aside from Smash Bros. Was Kirby 64, but Meta Knight was definitely, like, a really interesting character, and I'm glad he made it in Smash Bros. Brawl, along with another Kirby character we'll get to soon, but Meta Knight, yeah, I love his attacks and all that. Basically, it's just like a heavier Kirby, but with a sword and bat wings, and I'd say the only thing I don't care for is his down special, like the Vanish move, where if you time it right, you can do a slash. And then his final smash is a pretty generic one too. It's another one of those shocker slash attacks. I just hate those. Like these are just the most generic final smashes in the game. Just rapid slash, pause, final smash. Oh, I hate that. It's so tiring. I feel like almost every DLC fighter has that exact same final smash. Now, when Pitt was first reintroduced in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, I honestly hated this character. It probably didn't help that he was voiced by Lonnie Manelli, and I hate it. I almost, like, hate every character she voices. And, anyways, Pitt, I thought he was a really annoying character. I did not like his moveset, but then Kid Icarus Uprising came out. I loved that game, and so I loved how they took more inspiration from Uprising with reinventing his moveset in the later games. And so, yeah, I actually do like Pitt now. I wouldn't say he's, like, one of my favorite characters, though, but I definitely think he was an improvement for the better. But I will say I do think his final smash is a downgrade in this one compared to what it was in the previous games. But he had, like, a different final smash in, like, every single game, and this was my least favorite. My favorite one was probably the one in 3DS and Wii U, where he used the Sacred Treasures to attack. Dark Pit, on the other hand, I'm not the biggest fan of playing as him. It's like, what was the point in making him an Echo Fighter? He should have just been an alternate costume. I will at least say, Dark Pit probably has the better final smash out of the two. Otherwise, yeah, I'm not too crazy. I do like how he has, like, that shocker attack as the side special. Otherwise, he's almost like an exact replica of Pitt, and it just felt like a waste of space for the character selection. Zero Suit Samus, probably the first bombshell character of the series, and so, Yeah, Zero Suit Samus, while I don't enjoy playing as her as much as I do Power Suit Samus, I do think Zero Suit Samus was a great addition to the series. She's very kick-butt, very fast. She may not be as tough as Samus, but she's just such a swift character. And compared to Sheik, though, I think her attacks pack more of a punch, and they have a bit more of a strategy to them. Like the way some of her attacks can actually stun enemies. And I'd say the only thing I don't like about Zero Suit Samus is how she has too many recovery attacks. Like her down special where she does like that dolphin kick or whatever. And then the up special where she just does like a rapid like spin kick. It's like, what was the point? Why did they give her 2 recovery moves? I felt like they should have sacrificed one of them and made it better. But I will say it's still an improvement over her moveset in Brawl, where one of her up specials was one of those whip recoveries. Honestly, that's one of my least favorite kind of recovery attacks in this series. The ones where they use like a whip or a vine to try to get back up. I hate those. I feel like they're very unresponsive at times. So I'll at least say she's better in this game. And I like, ever since 3DS and Wii U, you actually get to select her through the menu instead of having to hold a certain button or use a final smash just to play as Zero Suit Samus. Now, Wario, this is a character I've wanted ever since Melee, or ever since the first Smash Bros. For that matter. And honestly, while I think it's cool that Wario's in this game, I'm not the biggest fan of his moveset, though. I honestly wish they took more inspiration from his moves from like the Wario Land games, and it's just a cluster mess of things that we've never seen before. I don't remember Wario ever like eating people or farting, eating so much that he can build up like farts or something. That was so stupid. Haha, he's fat, so let's give him a fart attack, or I don't know, but I like his up special, though. I like how it's kind of like the opposite of Mario and Luigi's original down special, where they would, you held down to spin downward, and then for Wario, you hold up to, up special to do an upward spin. Kind of cool. The motorcycle attack's kind of cool. His final smash is kind of funny, where he turns into Wario Man, but other than that, I kind of wish they just took a little more inspiration from the Wario Land games. It's nice to see he kind of has like the charge attack animation, but I wish it worked more like how it did in the actual games, where you could charge it up and build it up, and I don't know. Wario, he's a character I really wanted to like, but I felt like they messed up his moveset in favor of giving him fart humor. Now, Snake was a very historical character for many reasons in Smash Bros. Not only being the first guest character, but the first character from an M-rated series to be playable in Smash Brothers. And so, I really wish I could say I like playing as Snake, but honestly, I don't, and mainly because, I like characters where using their basic A attacks can cause them to do, like, allows them to build up damage, use, like, rapid attacks to build up power, and Snake doesn't really have that. He just doesn't have very powerful punches or anything. I mean, he does have a lot of cool explosive weapons, but that's the thing. He's mostly a character who is better off fighting from a distance, and it's real easy for his attacks to miss. I will say some of his attacks are cool, though, but I just feel like his controls are really hard to get used to. Like, most characters, when you try using a smash attack, a character will launch a character across the screen. What does Snake do? He fires a rocket launcher towards the ground and fires. And so it has less of a hit range to hit characters directly on. Otherwise, like, some of his abilities are cool, like planting the mine bombs, throwing the grenades. I don't care for his up special, though. I hate the up specials where they can't do any damage. His final smash is kind of cool, though. I like how the longer the crosshair aims at the characters, the more missiles will launch at them in the end. That's kind of cool. I'll say it is kind of a downgrade from his final smash from the other games, though, where you actually got to go in, like, a first-person shooter mode while he's, like, hanging onto a helicopter. That was kind of cool. I liked that. Otherwise, let's just say I like the other guest character who was introduced in Brawl a lot better. We'll be getting to him soon. So, as for Ike, I may not be the biggest fan of the Fire Emblem characters, but I'll at least say Ike definitely stands out from some of the others that you've seen because, instead of just being a direct clone of Marth, he's more of a heavy sword wielder, so his attacks are a lot slower, but he's got greater attack range. Similar to Roy, he has some very explosive attacks. I like how his default special attack is where he thrusts the sword downward and causes the blue flames. His up special is so much more interesting than Marth or Roy's. Otherwise, yeah, he is another anime sword wielder, so I wouldn't say he's like the best one, but I can see why he's a fan favorite for some. I'll definitely say I like him. I like him more than both Marth and Roy. I'll just say that. And I've never even played the games he's from. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of the Pokemon trainer gimmick. Like, I think playing as some of these Pokemon are kind of cool, but I don't like the idea of you have to swap between them to play as them. I kind of liked how the Wii U and 3DS one had Charizard as his own separate character, and because of that, they were able to, you know, give him, like, Rock Smash along with Flare Blitz, but because they had to reprogram in the button swap Pokemon, they got rid of Charizard's Rock Smash and replaced it with Flare Blitz, and I don't know. A part of me liked Charizard better when he was an individual fighter. I wasn't the biggest fan of playing as Squirtle. I mean, I do like Squirtle as a Pokemon, but I don't think he's that great as a Smash Bros. Competitor. I think Ivysaur is a good, you know, like, Squirtle's obviously one who's focused on speed. Ivysaur is a good in-between. He has good power and speed. And then Charizard is the slowest one, but the most powerful one, and he technically has, like, some extra jumps with his flight, but... I think the final smash is cool, though, how they're just mixing the most powerful attacks of, you know, well, the most powerful basic attacks like Fire Blast, Hydro Pump, and Solar Beam. That's a cool idea. I wish you could do that in the actual games, but, so, Squirtle, I think most of his attacks revolve around just splashing water or spinning around in a shell. Ivysaur, he's got, like, you know, Razor Leaf, Vine Whip, and all that, Bullet Seed and all that. I'd say my least favorite attack is the Vine Whip, though, how it's mostly just, a ledge grab attack. Like I said, I hate those as the recovery moves. But, otherwise, I'd say Ivysaur is actually my favorite of the three Pokemon to play as. I just wish his, recovery was better. Charizard, he's mostly just Bowser with wings, I guess. But, otherwise, I like Charizard as a Pokemon, and, I just wish his jumping was better. It's bad enough as speed is so slow, but come on, he can jump multiple times, yet it's like he doesn't get much airtime regardless. It's like, I don't get that. If you're going to give a character multiple jumps, give them good jumps. It's sad how there are characters who can just, like, jump at the touch of one button and they can jump higher than Charizard can at his maximum flight. It's pretty sad. Now, Diddy Kong is a character I've wanted in Smash Brothers ever since I played Donkey Kong 64. Diddy Kong is definitely my favorite Kong, and so I think for the most part I do like his moveset, but I wish it had a little more inspiration from DK64. Like, you've got a few attacks in there that are definitely DK64 inspired, like the Peanut Popper and the Jetpack, but come on, they should have given him like the orange grenades, or the electric guitar sound blast attack or something, but... Most of his attacks seem to be more inspired by his basic moves from Donkey Kong Country 2, especially his animations. I do think he was kind of downgraded in this game, both with his final smash and especially with his basic attacks. Like, originally he had like a rapid tail whip attack, and apparently that was broken. They had to nerf it. And so he just has like a simple like 1-2-3 hit punch combo in this, and it's a huge downgrade. And I don't like his final smash as much in this game. I liked it when he actually got to control the jetpacks and start shooting like crazy. Basically, his final smash here is the exact same thing as Supersonic, which is one of the worst final smashes, in my opinion. I actually liked Supersonic in the previous games, but it has such terrible attack range in this game. And I'll at least say Diddy Kong's is slightly better than Supersonic because he has that addition where he dive bombs right into the enemies at the end. But, yeah, otherwise I am not the biggest fan of some of the changes they did with Diddy Kong in this game. Now, despite what I said about not caring about Ness very much, or especially what I said about thinking Lonnie Manelli is an annoying voice actress, I actually like playing as Lucas. I think Lucas is, one thing I like about Lucas is that his PK Fire isn't so spam-like Ness. Like, he's got some very powerful attacks. His PK Thunder is much more powerful. His, like, his up smash especially, it might be slow, but man, is that thing powerful, and, I just like playing as Lucas a lot better. Too bad his final smash is almost like the exact same thing, though, as Ness's. Okay, now I gotta admit, Sonic the Hedgehog is one of my, like, top 3 favorite playable characters to play in this game. I'll admit, like, I wanted to like him in Brawl, but I thought his attacks were way too weak, but I felt like they buffed him up really well in the sequels, Wii U, 3DS, and especially Ultimate. My only complaint with him is I don't like how he shares basically two of the same attacks across like two separate control schemes. Like, he has two separate ways of activating a spin dash, basically. Either hold down special or side special. And there are just so many other attacks they could have used. And I'm one of those people who are like, yeah, why didn't they ever play the game Sonic Battle and take some inspiration from that? Otherwise, Sonic is just a very fun character. He's really fast but easy to control. His attacks are just like rapid, fast, and they hit pretty hard. I just love all the spins and spikes and punches he has. He's just a fun character to play as. However, his final smash sucks. It barely hits anything. You have, like, barely any control of it, and it's like sometimes the Chaos Emeralds might fling into the enemies and send them flying, but good luck with that. But, so they buffed up Sonic, but at the cost of Super Sonic being dumbed down greatly. Okay, King Dededy. This is a character I've wanted ever since I played Kirby 64. I thought Dededy was awesome, and over the years I learned that, okay, he's basically one of the main enemies of the Kirby games, but according to the creator, he's more of an anti-hero. It's like he sometimes causes problems, so, you know, one game he can be a villain, one game he can be an ally, but that's one thing that's kind of cool about King Dededy. While he is considered the main arch nemesis of Kirby, he's not, like, a bad guy all around. He's just kind of like one of those misunderstood bully characters. And so, Dededy as a playable character, though, like, this is a good example of taking heavy inspiration from the games they're from. I mean, I'm not surprised, though. This was thought of by the creator of both Smash Brothers and Kirby, and so the fact that all the movesets basically mimic some attack he used in some of the old Kirby games is brilliant. The only exception probably being his down special, and his default attack where he throws the Gordos. Yeah, those definitely weren't in. But otherwise, like, his animations, like his tripping attack, his up special, his float animations, like, all of that is straight from the games, and they did a beautiful transition into a 3D fighter. And I love his final smash. It's very cinematic, where he has, like, his mask form, and is in, like, a cage match. It is just so brutal, but awesome. So much better than his previous two final smashes. Oh, that like, hit at the end. Brilliant. Now, aside from the up special, Olimar was a character I used to love playing as in Brawl. Like, he wasn't one I'd want to rely on playing as. Like, he's definitely not the best for a competitive scene, but he was still fun. I like the idea of being able to throw the Pikmin at the enemies and attacking them to weaken them and all that, but I didn't like the up special where you had to use the Pikmin as a rope to latch on the edges. I do like how they replaced the winged Pikmin, or the flying Pikmin from Pikmin 3, although I do think that they have a terrible control scheme. They feel very random each time you use them. One minute they'll be strong, next they won't. But the biggest downgrade for me is how back then you gotta control 6 Pikmin at once, and now it's always, by default, 3, and it always starts off with the original red, yellow, and blue. I liked how it was more randomized in Brawl, where you had 6, and they were always randomized. So one minute you could start off with red, blue, and yellow, but then you might also have the purple, the white, and stuff like that. And if I recall, the white and purple ones are still in this game, but you can only get them if one of your Pikmin die, and you have to pluck them out of the ground. And I hate how, you know, there's a lot of stuff they could have used as moves, and instead they relied on some of the buttons to be like, oh, him blowing the whistle to redirect your Pikmin, and I feel like they could have easily had that be interpreted into some form of attack or something, but I don't know. So Olimar is a character I used to like playing as. I'm not a fan of playing as him anymore since they dumbed him down. What do you guys think? Do you guys miss the 6 Pikmin as well? Or I do think the winged Pikmin was a nice like replacement for the up special, but I wish it worked a lot better. But yeah, he's kind of a character I would not recommend playing as. And then Alpha's pretty much the exact same thing, so no point in playing as him. Lucario. So Lucario is like my favorite Pokemon ever, and I mentioned how there were, you know, pretty much for me, he was Mewtwo done right back when he was first out in Brawl. Like, I mentioned how when I played Melee, I really wanted to like playing as Mewtwo, but I did not like his moveset. I thought Lucario was a much better exception. I'd say my only complaint with him are his up and down specials. Like, his up specials, extreme speed, and it's one of those recovery attacks where the character just whooshes across the screen without doing any damage. I mean, come on, even Pikachu's quick attack can do that. And Extreme Speed, which is supposed to be a more powerful version of Quick Attack, can't even attack. His down special, which is just some stupid counter attack, and then I feel like his final smash has terrible range. I liked it better in... Either way, I think Lucario has much better attack range than Mewtwo, and much more powerful punches, although they do... The only thing they really share is a very similar default attack. Instead of Shadow Ball, you have Aura Sphere, and either way, I like Lucario. I don't think he's the best fighter, though. I do wish he kind of played a little better, but he was a huge improvement over Mewtwo's moveset, in my opinion. Now, I don't know what the deal was around this time, like why all of a sudden Rob was appearing in these games. I mean, he's not even a character. He's a controller peripheral for the NES. It's like turning the Virtual Boy into a playable character for Super Smash Bros. So first it started off in Mario Kart. He was a random character that was added into Mario Kart DS for no reason, and all of a sudden he was in Smash Brothers. And his inclusion in Super Smash Bros. Brawl was even more bizarre, especially since, you know, there was a new character introduced during the Subspace Emissary story. And so later when the character gets uncloaked and it turns out it's Rob, that was just like a big what the heck. So it'll be a big it'll be a bigger what the heck if people actually knew what Rob was, but he was a very obscure controller peripheral, so chances are a lot of people did not know who Rob was until Smash Bros. Either way, despite how he's literally a character built from a controller, you could say his moveset is kind of cool. It's basically just an excuse to get some fighting robot into the mix. So he does have like a good up special, although it doesn't do any attack damage. I like his thruster attacks where like the giant flames would shoot out of his bottom side, and it causes a lot of damage. His final smash was a huge improvement in this, but either way, I could have went without Rob. I don't think he's a terrible character, but he's a very unasked for character. Now, Toon Link, I've already shared my opinion on him. I wasn't the biggest fan of him. You know, I thought, like, I just saw him as the one who stole Young Link's spotlight. You know, while I do think Wind Waker's an okay game, I'm not the biggest fan of the art style, so I didn't like them forcing Toon Link into it. It just felt too random. I will say, though, I do like his downward thrust aerial attack, though. I think that is actually really swift and powerful, but otherwise, I'm more of a fan of Young Link. I will say I probably do prefer playing as Toon Link over Breath of the Wild Link in this game, but he feels so pointless compared to Young Link. And then his final smash, unfortunately, is the exact same thing as Young Link's, which is pretty underwhelming. Now, I remember being so disappointed when Wolf was in Smash Bros. Brawl, because honestly, if we were going to get another Star Fox representative, I was really looking forward to Crystal with her staff and all the staff abilities that Fox gained in Star Fox Adventures. I thought that would have been a more fun character. Instead, we got Wolf. Honestly, I don't, like, everyone says, like, oh, every time he shows up in the games, he's such a cool, badass character. This is coming from a guy who likes Star Fox. I don't care too much about Star Wolf's team or anything. I don't care about Wolf O'Donnell very much, so the only game I thought he was interesting in was Star Fox Assault. Otherwise, like the way he appeared in Star Fox 64 and every other game, I did not care for, and I even think his design in this was questionable. I will say his moveset isn't that bad. It's definitely a more feral version of Fox's moveset. It's more vicious. It relies more on like slash attacks. I like how his gun even has a bayonet in it, so it also works as a close combat attack. But then his final smash is like the exact same thing, and I don't think his like aerial attacks or specials are as good as Fox or Falco's, but okay character, but I would have chosen Crystal overall. I'm just sick of all these clone characters. So Villager, this was a very questionable choice. I remember Sakurai even stated once that Smash Bros. Can only include characters that are experienced in fighting. You can't have, like, a character like Villager from Animal Crossing in the mix, because that's a very kid-friendly, peaceful game where nothing bad happens. And then, all of a sudden, Villager is playable 2 Smash Bros. Games later. It made no sense, but... So, yeah, he was, like, the first character revealed for Super Smash Bros. Wii U and 3DS, and... honestly, I do not have fun playing as this character. His moveset is just too random and just too, non-traditional, I guess. You know, you're used to just going up to a character, using side smash to send them flying, and here, a lot of his attacks won't send characters flying necessarily. Oh, it'll send them flying, but not in the direction you want them to. It's just such a gimmicky character. The only thing I really like about him is I like how he has the pocket ability where you press the B button when a projectile attack is thrown or shot at you. The way the character can just put it in their pocket and use it later. It's a really funny gimmick. That definitely, you know, is a nice tribute to the game it's based on. But, and then the final smash is pretty funny too. I just laugh every time, like, the Tanukis are set flying when the house explodes. But other than that, I don't think the villager was that great of a character. I will say the other Animal Crossing representative they added is a huge improvement in comparison, but yeah, aside from the pocket ability, I am not a fan of his moveset. The Final Smash is hilarious, though. Now, aside from Mega Man 64, I never grew up with the Mega Man games, but I knew a lot of people who loved the Mega Man games, and so I knew, like, a lot of people were cheering when they saw Mega Man show up at the end of the Smash Bros. 3DS and Wii U announcement trailer, and so I wanted to be excited too, but in the end, I did not care for his moveset very much. The fact that, you know, they could have easily made his default special attack be like his default projectile attack. Instead, they made it his basic hit attack, and it's very weak and not very long range, so... And then, I feel like his other attacks are either too slow or just not powerful enough. I don't know. I like the idea behind his moveset, though. I like how it's based on all the different abilities he gets from the Robot Masters from many different games. But I felt like, I know I'm not the only one, though. I've heard many people say, like, they had the perfect idea for how Mega Man's moveset should be. Like, you know, they had their idea of, like, what power-ups they wanted to see. And I know a lot of people were disappointed in the end. Final Smash is kind of cool, but once again, this is another Final Smash. It gets recycled to death in this game. The one where it shows a bunch of different versions of the characters lining up, or a party of characters teaming up and ganging up on one character or something. It's kind of tiring. It was cool when, like, only one character had that, but then all these other characters are getting it, so it's nothing special anymore. Now, Wii Fit Trainer, this was the first... You know, along with the Wii Villager, along with the Animal Crossing Villager, I remember thinking this was a dumb idea for a character. So, the Wii Fit Trainer, it basically just looks like a creepy mannequin in a workout outfit, and it is kind of funny how all the moves are inspired by the mini-games or yoga poses from Wii Fit, but otherwise, I just don't think this character is that great. I think there are much better characters to play as. I don't know. I remember thinking, well, I thought Brawl had some real annoying clone characters. I thought it wasn't until the Wii U and 3DS era where they were just running out of ideas for characters. And despite how fans have been begging and pleading for certain characters who, to this day, still have not made it in. I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are asking for, like, Midna, Crystal, Rayman, Paper Mario, and it's like, we're never getting those characters, are we? Yeah, not a big fan of Wii Fit Trainer. Not the worst character, but not one I like playing as. And when the 3DS and Wii U version of Super Smash Bros. Was first announced, I think Rosalina was the first character announcement to surprise me. It was like a character from a series I was actually familiar with and liked. So, you know, I liked Mario Galaxy, and I thought Rosalina was an interesting character with an interesting backstory, and the Lumas were adorable. So, to have a character that was kind of like a spiritual replacement for Ice Climber, and better than Ice Climber, in my opinion, because the Luma acts kind of like the second Ice Climber, where it kind of mimics your abilities, but the way you can actually... it takes a little bit of strategy in learning how to use Luma properly. Like, I know a lot of people like to use them to break, like, the home run contest games in the Wii U and 3DS one, and... Otherwise, I don't think Rosalina's moveset is the greatest, though. Like, she does have a pretty annoying up special. Some of her attacks are kind of weak. Her default smash attacks are great, though, but when it comes to her specials and her final smash, they are very disappointing. She has that ability where she can pull items towards her. It feels kind of cheap or sometimes useless, but... So she's a mixed character in the end. I like Rosalina, but I feel like her moveset could have been better, but I'm still glad she's in the game regardless. Still better than what they did with Daisy. Okay, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but I was never really a fan of the Punch-Out games, and I think Little Mac was a terrible waste of a character slot. I just think he's boring. I mean, you already got a character like Mario where he can do a lot of punches and more, and what is this character's gimmick? Oh, punches. And a real annoying counterattack, and oh, the downside is he's a terrible jumper, but to try to make up for it, they gave him a broken as hell meter where when it fills up, he can give an automatic KO. I just think Little Mac is both a flawed and broken character. I just don't like playing as him. He's not fun to play as, and he's especially worse to play against, especially if you were playing the Wii U version, trying to get, like, all the trophies and achievements and all that, because it required you to go on, like, classic mode on the hardest difficulties without losing a life, and every time Little Mac showed up, he was broken. You just got, like, sent flying without barely getting hit, and I just hated Little Mac. I hate playing as him, and I hate fighting against him, and his Final Smash sucks as well. Yeah, I don't know. The only cool thing about Little Mac is his coach, who appears during the victory animations. That guy's awesome. Now, Greninja is a cool Pokemon. He was definitely, you know, he was my starter Pokemon in the region he came from. Trying to remember, like, wasn't he from X and Y? But, so many Pokemon games now, I almost lose track now, but, back then I used to remember, like, every single Pokemon, what gen they were from, but, anyways, Greninja, I thought he was a cool Pokemon, but honestly, moveset-wise, I wasn't too impressed. He mostly feels like a clone of, characters like Sheik, except, oh, he's got a bit of a water gimmick, but, yeah, it's basically just Sheik with a water gimmick. A water frog Sheik or something, I don't know, and then the Final Smash is once again another clone of like Sheik's Final Smash with the rapid slashes, and for some reason they threw in the Ash Greninja gimmick, which was exclusive to the anime, I heard. Never watched any of the anime that had the X and Y Pokemon, but so I wouldn't know much. But yeah, Greninja, I was kind of disappointed. I like Greninja, but I didn't think he was necessary to be a fighter in Smash Brothers per se. Palutena, I really wanted to like her moveset. I mean, I love Palutena. She is such a funny character, not to mention she's pretty to look at, but I don't know. I feel like some of her attacks are either too slow or just do not have a good like hit range or something. I wouldn't say I hate playing as her, though. I just feel like she's a very hit-or-miss character. She has some cool attacks, but just some terrible aiming and attack range, and I don't know. I will say she's slightly better in this game compared to how she was in 3DS or Wii U, though, but still left a lot to be desired. And then her Final Smash with the black hole and Mega Laser is kind of cool. Now, I know Pac-Man was quite an honor, being like one of the oldest video game characters to join the roster, and not to mention he's also a guest character, and a very iconic video game for that matter. And so, I do, like, I think it's cool that Pac-Man's in this game, but at the same time, I think his moveset feels kind of lazy, like how a lot of his attacks have, like, all these little pixel icons where, you know, yeah, Mario originated from a pixelated game, but I don't see him shooting 8-bit fireballs. So, or I don't recall Pac-Man being able to grab people like a Galaga ship or something, I don't know. Like, like, his default attacks are okay, like, I like the ones where he throws the pellets and chases after him, those are fine, but then it's like the trampoline attack, the fire hydrant. Like, honestly, Pac-Man felt more like he should have been an assist trophy instead of an actual character. A lot of his moves just felt half-assed. But I'm glad they went with his world design and not his Ghostly Adventures design. That's cool, but not a bad character, just a questionable character in my opinion. Okay, Robin. So, this character can turn out to be like the husband or wife of Chrom, depending on which gender you chose and what choices you make in the game. But I know during my playthrough, I had a female Robin. She ended up being the wife of Chrom and the mother of Lucina. And so Robin is an interesting, unique take on the Fire Emblem characters because unlike the others who are sword wielders, this is one who is one of the spellcasters, so they use the tomes. But unfortunately, they carried a little too much of the formula of Fire Emblem with their gameplay here, because the fact that their spells can run out to the point where they have to throw their books away when they expire, and I think that really holds these characters back. I like the idea of a character who can use a bunch of spells, but at the expense of them being wasted and used up, it's not worth it. How come other characters have unlimited ammo, but then these characters don't? I mean, technically in Fire Emblem, the character's swords could break, but I don't recall them breaking in gameplay here. Yet when it comes to the tomes, they do? I don't know. Cool idea for a character, but really ruined it in the form of the limitations. It comes to a point where your characters can't even deal much damage because all their spells wore out. They can't even use up specials or... Yeah, not a big fan of playing as Robin, to be honest. So Shulk, never played the original Xenoblade Chronicles, but played Xenoblade Chronicles X and 2. And so I know Shulk was the main character of that, and I don't know. I know Shulk has an interesting gimmick where he can change his, he can change his stats by holding the B button, which I think was a huge improvement over how it was in the original appearance on Wii U and 3DS, where you just had to keep tapping it repeatedly to alter. So I like how here you can hold the B button to open up a little wheel that you can tilt the controller in a direction. So you can change the stats to make him that, raises a stat but lowers a stat in the process. So you can, sacrifice one thing to gain speed or strength or defense or shield power. So it's a cool idea, but honestly I think it's kind of worthless, especially in, if you're in, really fast-paced battles, you won't have enough time to stand around and try to change that. So that'd be more fun if you're just playing with friends and want to goof around, but if you're wanting to play competitively, I would not recommend playing as Shulk. Otherwise, he basically plays like just every other Fire Emblem character. It's a sword wielder with an upper special attack, and then some kind of counter attack. And then his final smash feels kind of similar to Mega Man's, but I don't know. Either way, I wasn't the biggest fan of Shulk, to be honest. Just another generic anime sword wielder. Now, Bowser Jr., I thought the idea of him being playable sounded kind of cool. I was hoping he would have had the magic paintbrush from Mario Sunshine. He would have been a faster, smaller version of Bowser, but with a paintbrush attack. And instead, they gave him a clown car with all these little weapons. And honestly, I blame this game for the sudden trend where all of a sudden, every time Bowser Jr. shows up in a Mario game, he's always in that goddamn clown car. And I hate how every time he's a playable character, he can never run around on foot anymore like he did in Mario Power Tennis. Or he's always in that damn clown car, and I'm sick of it. It's one thing for him to use it every once in a while, but even when he's a playable character, it's I'm just so sick of it. And it wasn't until this game where he's suddenly using it. I don't even recall seeing him in a clown car until Smash Brothers, to be honest. And his moveset's not too bad, though. I just kind of wish they just had a more traditional version of Bowser Jr. And I'm not the biggest fan of the Koopaling, so I know that's honestly the main gimmick for why they gave him the clown car, so he could switch between the different Koopalings, but never cared for the Koopaling, so I don't care that you get to play as them or fight against them in this. I just hate those little jerks, and I don't know. Bowser Jr. is kind of a letdown for me overall. So, I remember when the roster for Smash Bros. 3DS and Wii U got leaked, I did not believe it, especially since the Duck Hunt duo was playable. But then eventually it turned out, no, those weren't hoaxes. That was an actual leak. It's what the heck? I know, people joked about it back then. Oh, wouldn't it be funny to have the Duck Hunt dog in there so you can finally beat him up or something? And so, yeah, this was a very unasked for, I don't think people were serious when they said they wanted the Duck Hunt dog in it. Either way, we got him in the game, and honestly, it does not feel like the actual character from the game. The one in the game was a smug jerk, and not to mention how the ducks were the things you had to hunt down. So here, you all of a sudden have a duo where it's, the dog was helping a human, hunt ducks in the game, so it's weird to see him partnered up with a little duck, and obviously, a lot of people theorize that this was Nintendo's way of saying sorry that we never got a chance to put Banjo-Kazooie into Smash Brothers, so the best they could do is make another character team where it's an animal paired with a bird or something, and they use team-based attacks. And so, boy, was that even more surprising when we got the actual characters later on. We'll get to that later, but so the Duck Hunt duo, as random as it was, I'll admit they were a fun addition. It's kind of fun how a lot of their movesets are randomly based on old NES shooting game gimmicks, and it's kind of fun. Yeah, they're kind of a cute pair. Just a dog working with a little duck. They work together pretty well. So Ryu from Street Fighter. I've honestly not ever really gotten into the Street Fighter series. I like some of the characters, though, but honestly, the only Street Fighter game I ever played was Street Fighter 4 on Xbox 360. And yes, the original version before they started re-releasing it like crazy. And I just remembered hearing it was a very popular series. And I technically did play Street Fighter 2 in the arcade a long time ago. But I don't know. I'm just, I'm just so used to the simplified controls of games like Smash Brothers or, I'm more used to fighting games like Tekken or Soul Calibur. So I don't know. I felt like Street Fighter was either a little too basic or, well, I felt like the controls were too hard to pull off, and I felt like there just weren't enough surprises to keep me engaged, so I don't know. never really got into the series, but otherwise, I think Ryu did a good transition into Smash Brothers. He's another close combat fighter, but I still think he's more fun to play as compared to, like, Little Mac. It helps that he has abilities like Shuriken and all that, Hadouken and all that, and so, yeah, he's a fun addition. I honestly like playing as him more than Ken. Ken basically is just, I want to say he might be a slightly faster version of Ryu here. Otherwise, like, he has a weaker Hadouken. You can't even charge it up. Like, there's a secret when playing as Ryu where you can kind of like move the control stick around like you would in the arcade game to get like the more powerful Hadouken, and so you can have that happen in Smash Bros. But Ken does not have that privilege for some reason. Otherwise, I will say he probably does have the better final smash of the two, though. It just looked a little more cooler. They're very similar, though, but I just kind of liked his better. And if I'm not mistaken, these are some of the only few characters who have two separate final smashes. They have one for if you attack an enemy on the ground, and one if you attack them while jumping in midair. Cloud from Final Fantasy VII. I wanted to be excited for this announcement back then, because, you know, oh my god, we're getting a Final Fantasy character. You know, they have quite some history with Nintendo. They won some... Square Enix once made games for Nintendo until PlayStation, and then all of a sudden they're back with Nintendo, and they had a character who wasn't even on a Nintendo console ever, and suddenly he's in Smash Bros. That was a big deal, but again, it's another sword wielder, another anime sword wielder, and I will say, though, one thing I do like about Cloud, though, is despite how he's a sword wielder, he's surprisingly really fast and light, but I do feel like it is cool how they did not give him a counterattack like so many of the others, but he plays too similarly to a lot of the Fire Emblem characters like Marth, with the exception being his up special feels very much like Kirby's. But he has like the final smash of like Sheik and all these other sword-wielding characters. The limit idea was kind of cool. I just don't like how they had to have a whole button dedicated to charging the limit meter. It's kind of stupid, but I would have been more excited for it if there weren't already so many sword wielders. And then right after that, what other character do we get? Another sword wielder, but more of a lance wielder, I guess. But so I never played the Fire Emblem Fate series, but I remember I was turned off from it as soon as I realized they went from making it into one game and selling it into two separate games, followed by a third final episode. And so I did not buy into that, so never got into the series after that. I just stopped playing Fire Emblem after that. Awakening was enough for me, but so Corrin apparently is like half dragon, I guess. You know, never played the game, don't know the story, but I will admit, though, that is one thing that sets Corrin apart from the others. I do kind of like the dragon gimmick. I'll at least say, despite how I wasn't excited for this character, I will say I ended up liking Corrin more than the next Fire Emblem character we ended up getting, but we'll get to that later. Otherwise, Corrin wasn't too bad. I do think what spices the characters up is the inclusion of the dragon transformation. It helps make them more than just a generic sword wielder. So, yeah, Corrin's not too bad. Bayonetta. So, yeah, this was, I'll admit, because of Smash Bros, it got me into wanting to play the Bayonetta games. And so, yeah, I have the first two on... I had them on Wii U, and then I rebought them for Switch, and I'm even looking forward to Bayonetta 3. And, yeah, I like the Bayonetta series. It's a pretty fun hack-and-slash adventure game. So, Bayonetta, though, I honestly didn't like her moveset very much in this game, though. I think, like, her smash attacks are great, though, but her specials, I'm not too crazy for. I do like how they have, like, kind of like a counter-attack that acts like the Witcher time, where, like, she can slow everything down, but her up special is incredibly weak, and then her final smash, oh god, I hate it. I wish the final smash was just like an automatic attack. Instead, it's one where you have to keep like hitting a character in time, and while standing close to them, if you mess up, you wasted a final smash. I hate that. It sucks. Now, Splatoon was a game that I wasn't too excited for, but, you know, I felt like there just weren't a whole lot of games coming out around that time when it came out. So I heard that that was the game that everyone was talking about, and so I got Splatoon back when it came out on Wii U, and I liked it at first, but then when I realized that most of the stuff was really only good for online, and I was starting to grow into that era where I realized that online games weren't forever, so I started wasting hours on games just to know that eventually they're going to shut down and you lose all that progress. So, because Splatoon was a game that heavily focused on online, I lost interest in the series, so I'm not even excited for Splatoon 3. I thought Splatoon 2 was a huge waste of money, and I honestly like Splatoon 1 a lot better anyways. But, that being said, I like playing as the Inklings in Smash Bros. More than playing the game of Splatoon itself. I think the Inklings were a great addition to the series, and it's funny how they were like the first characters introduced for Smash Bros. Ultimate. Who could forget that teaser trailer? Everyone was so excited for that. And so, yeah, the Inklings were a great addition. They're a fun mess of characters, and I love it. Man, to think, this was a character that Sakurai once said would never be in the series. But here we finally have Ridley, and oh man, I remember how brutal the launch trailer for him was. The reveal trailer, I mean, but Ridley was a great addition, but my god, I feel bad for playing as him, because he is just broken and overpowered. And it's like, his side special is almost like a suicide attack, because it's guaranteed to, like, kill your opponent, but it's almost guaranteed to kill you as well. It just sends Ridley flying, and it's almost, like, impossible to shut off, but, God, like, all of his, like, giant, like, flapping attacks and stab attacks, his slashing attacks, he's just such an overpowered, deadly character, and then, his flaming breath is also pretty powerful, and then his final smash is just cinematically epic. And so, yeah, Ridley was definitely worth the wait, but I do feel like, yeah, I'm surprised he never got any nerfs, because, man, is he overpowered. But, man, is he fun to play as regardless. Simon Belmont from Castlevania. Aside from playing a little bit of the original on NES, I really have no experience with the Castlevania games, but I'm honestly not the biggest fan of the Metroidvania-style games. I don't like those games with the overwhelming labyrinths that don't give you a good hint on where to go next. You know, I just don't have the patience for games like that, and so, I can't, like, I think his moveset's okay, though, but, you know, it's kind of cool to have, like, this buffed-out character, who fights with a whip, and some of his like attacks, like the holy grenade and all that, are kind of fun. But his final smash, where like he just like sends your character into a coffin and whips it around, it's pretty funny. But then Richter, on the other hand, he just feels like a slightly faster, slimmer version of Simon. Otherwise, I didn't notice any big difference. Otherwise, like, good for the fans. I know a lot of people who are diehard fans of Castlevania were excited to see that, especially since it's a series that goes all the way back to the NES days and still goes on as far as I know. But I cannot believe it took them this long to add King K freaking Rool into Super Smash Bros. But I've wanted him ever since I saw this loony villain in Donkey Kong 64. I fell in love with this character, and you know, I've seen like all of his boss fights from the different Donkey Kong Country games. I was like, this would make for a great move set. Why don't you do anything about it? And yet they got it. They got like all these different moves inspired by all of his different personas and all these different games, including like him being like a pirate. You know, you also have like his mad scientist vibes, and even his boxer days from Donkey Kong 64, all interpreted into his moveset. And his final smash was just the icing on the cake. It was the game over screen from Donkey Kong 64, fully shown uncensored. Him just blasting a laser into Donkey Kong Isle while managing to shoot his target in the process. It's like, that was brilliant. I love that. It makes me want like an HD reimagining of Donkey Kong 64, minus the shitty minigames. As much as I did not care for Villager as a playable character, I gotta admit, Isabelle was a much better replacement. My only complaint with her is that her default like hit attack is incredibly weak, where she has the little toy hammer. Other than that, though, her moveset is a huge improvement over Villager. She has like proper smash and smash attacks and all these other attacks that actually deal some damage, that can send people flying, and it's like the deadly fishing pole. I remember like how everyone was like freaking out over that. You know, there's some funny memes of how deadly Isabelle was like when this game first came out, and beware the fishing hook and all that. But so she has like the best parts of Villager, though, like being able to pocket the items. She has like the same throw attacks and all of that, but the only problem is, yeah, she has the exact same final smash, which might be a little underwhelming for some. But overall, Isabelle, I mean, arguably she's, you know, like pretty much like the mascot of Animal Crossing ever since she was introduced in New Leaf. She's just the friendly face of the series, and it's great to see. Although it is very unfitting for a character like her to be in a fighting game like Smash Brothers. Like, she makes it very clear in the game that she's a pacifist, so it's weird to see her just throwing fists around all of a sudden, but oh well. Okay, Incineroar, I was never really the biggest fan of this Pokemon. You know, here I got like a little Litten. I thought it was like the cutest little thing ever, then it turns into a giant like Tony the Tiger wrestler, and But, yeah, I was not asking for him to be playable in Smash Brothers, and I thought his moveset was terrible. It's weird to have a Pokemon where, you know, Pokemon usually attack with, like, powers and, special attacks and all that, and so it's weird to see a Pokemon that's just mostly fighting with wrestling moves. I know it's not out of place in the Pokemon world, but I don't know, it's not really what I want to see in Smash Brothers. I feel like we already, like, it is kind of cool to see a character who uses, like, wrestling moves, but why'd it have to be Incineroar? I'm just not the biggest fan of this Pokemon. Like, I think some of the move ideas are okay, though, but I think the execution of some of its moves are really terrible. Like, I hate the default specials, the side special, and just the specials in general. Like, the up special, I hate how it causes him to come crashing down, and Incineroar is just a real confusing Pokemon. It's like, you can tell they really wanted to be a half-fire fighting type Pokemon, but the fact that it's a fire-dark type Pokemon, yet it has all these wrestling moves even in the game, I don't know, it just makes no sense. Not a fan of Incineroar. Piranha Plant, oh god, this was such a stupid slap in the face, especially to those who wanted a more deserving Mario character, cough Waluigi, but Piranha Plant was basically the first joke character announced for Smash Bros. Ultimate, and if I recall, it was like a pre-order bonus, like you got him for free if you had bought the game early, but for those who didn't, though, they had to buy it as regular DLC later, but Piranha Plant, like, it's a funny character, though, like, there is something funny about this stupid little plant, like, running around and fighting people, but I don't know, I'm not the biggest fan of playing as him, though. I do think the final Smash where he turns into PD Piranha was kind of cool, but overall, nah, it's a character I could have lived without. Like, you know, Sakurai said that if they ever made another Smash Bros., there would not be as many characters in this as there was in Ultimate. So, implying that many characters would have to be cut out. And so, if PD Piranha, or Piranha Plant was, like, cut out, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't miss him. Okay, so here we have Joker, or as I like to nickname him, Bayonetta, because he basically just looks like a male version of Bayonetta. I've never played any of the Persona games, so I apologize. I know a lot of people were excited for him when he was announced. I just kind of yawned, and then, so, you know, I always like to give these characters a chance. I'll play as them, see if I'll like them or not, and I just didn't see anything special about him. He just reminded me too much of characters like Bayonetta, with, like, the default attack being shooting with the pistols, and the only thing he has going for him is, if his gauge fills up, he can summon his Persona to boost his attacks, similarly to, like, what Cloud could do with the limit meter, except the limit was used where when you used it on one attack, it used up the meter. And so, other than that, though, it's like the only thing he had going for him, aside from his stage, was the Final Smash, I guess. I do admit the Final Smash is kind of a cool little tribute to the little battle transitions from the little combat segments in the actual game, and I do find it funny how they censored the blood with the sparkles. Otherwise, I didn't really care for this character overall. Okay, Hero, I don't know, I just thought most of the DLC for Smash Bros. Ultimate was a big snore fest for me. So I know this was very huge for Japan, apparently, because Dragon Quest was like one of the first big RPGs and JRPGs, and otherwise, to me, it was just another group of anime boy sword wielders, but they do have a more unique gimmick here, but my god, is it broken. Like, honestly, like, they aren't, like, sometimes their attacks just send people flying with one hit. It's so unfair, but I will say, though, I can see the gimmick in playing as Hero in multiplayer mode. Like, I could definitely see a lot of people having fun, like, making up their own rules of Hero. Like, you can only attack by using the MP spells, no using the smash attacks or up specials, just use the down B specials, and only attack when you need to refill your meter. I can see a bunch of people having a bunch of fun with this character. So, it's definitely, like, yeah, it's a unique character, I'll give it that. It's not as generic as I thought it would be. It's not one I'd want to play as all the time, though, but it's not as bad as I thought. But, however, the other character that was announced the same day as Hero, That was the one I was hoping for, and was definitely the one I was more excited for. I'm pretty sure you already know what two I'm talking about. That's right, Banjo and Kazooie. I haven't been so excited for a character announcement since Sonic the Hedgehog was announced for Brawl, but I'll even say Banjo and Kazooie, like, nearly made me cry. This was the most exciting Smash Bros. Announcement for me I've seen since Super Smash Bros. Melee was first announced, but, oh god, Banjo-Kazooie, you know, it's like, we all know the development hell this series has gone through, ever since, Microsoft got, you know, ever since Rare bought out, ever since Microsoft bought out Rare, we all know how neglected or downhill the Banjo-Kazooie series has gotten, and so the fact that we never thought we'd see them on a Nintendo console again, let alone another video game again, and so, yeah, this was a big deal for a lot of people, and then meanwhile, there are a bunch of people who saw the goofy Baron Bird get announced, and they're like, who the hell are these guys? Well, to be fair, I'm like that about a bunch of characters who get announced for Smash Bros., but, yeah, Banjo-Kazooie was worth the wait. God, I've wanted these ever since the N64 one. I loved them overall. There were only a few things I complained about in the end. I thought the egg shooting controls could have been a lot better. I would have turned the down special instead of the grenade eggs. I would have had it be the Beak Buster attack, but replace it with have it where you can hold it to turn into the Drill Peck attack or something from Banjo-Tooie. But otherwise, the final smash is exactly what I was hoping for. I said if they had a final smash, it has to be the Jinjinator. It was, and so yeah, honestly, Banjo-Kazooie quickly became my top favorite character. Back then, it used to be like both Yoshi and Sonic, but now it's Banjo-Kazooie. They became my favorite characters to play as. Okay, so Terry Bogard from the Fatal Fury series. I've honestly never played any of these games. I've heard of them, though. I know, like, it had a bunch of arcade titles. It had, like, some anime adaptations. And they've definitely been featured in a bunch of crossover games. Otherwise, I'm not very familiar with the SNK franchise very much, aside from, like, some of the crossovers from, like, I know, like, the character Mai appeared in some of the Dead or Alive games. But, so, Terry Bogard, honestly, all I see is Ken wearing a hat. It looks like Ken cross-dressing as a Pokemon trainer. I don't know, but I know for some it was a big deal, but I don't know. I feel like we've already got the Street Fighter gang, and I don't know. I honestly thought they were more fun to play as. I will say I do like his Final Smash, otherwise I wasn't too excited for Terry's announcement. Good for those who were rooting for him to be in Smash Brothers. You guys got your wish, but it wasn't for me. Okay, Byleth, I didn't even know who this was. Like, you know, I was at least familiar with some of the characters from the other Fire Emblem games, even the ones I've never played, because I've actually heard people talk about it, but out of, like, the people I follow, I've never heard anyone talk about the Fire Emblem Three Houses games. Heck, I didn't even realize they made a Warriors crossover of it. I knew about Fire Emblem Warriors, but I didn't know they made a Three House Warriors, and that just came out of nowhere, and so... Byleth, I remember this, I'm just glad I'm not the only one who agreed, but I remember, even people who were excited for the other Fire Emblem characters admitted that this was the worst, like, reveal trailer out of any Smash Bros. Character. The trailer was just so corny and painfully unfunny, and, I thought the Corrin one was kind of cringy with the joint Smash option, but, the Byleth trailer was even worse, but... I will give it, though, it is kind of cool to finally have a Fire Emblem character where they swap between many weapons. It's not like where they just have one class throughout. It feels kind of like the Weapon Masters where they can equip, like, any item instead of being, kind of like what you could do with, I think Robin could get, like, that role in, Fire Emblem Awakening where you could upgrade them far enough to where they can learn any ability, but, so it's kind of cool to have a character like that. I don't know, just too little, too late. It's just another... generic Fire Emblem character with a slightly unique moveset, but too little, too late. Okay, Min, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. Of all the characters that were added in the DLC, I thought Min was one of the worst characters. I don't know, I didn't think ARMS looked like that great of a game. It just looked like Punch-Out, but with like a gimmicky, stretchy ARMS gimmick, and... So, Min, I wasn't really, like, rooting for any character from that game to get added to the roster, and it's like, no one even talks about that game anymore. I don't hear anyone clamoring for an ARMS 2. It's like that game just got dropped and forgotten about. Like, I see people still asking for more Splatoon. I do not see anyone asking for ARMS. So, Not to mention how Min Min seems like a really random character. You already have like 2 characters, like the Ribbon Girl or the one who ended up becoming the assist trophy. How come they weren't options to be playable? Instead, they were just like spirits or trophies, or I don't know. It's so stupid. And so Min Min, I don't know. It's like her whole gimmick is she can stretch her arms. You know who else can stretch her arms and do more? You got characters like Lanky Kong or Rayman. Honestly, I would have rather had them playable, but instead it's just a character who can do nothing more than just stretch her arms. Gets old really fast. I'll even say I like playing as Little Mac more. But maybe I was a little too harsh. Oh boy, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this. But honestly, I think if I were to say who is the worst fighter in any Smash Bros. Game, I would have to say Steve and his alter egos. Not alter egos, but different skins from Minecraft. I know like a lot of people said back then, like it's so hard to believe that certain characters are added to Smash Bros. But seriously, out of all the characters I've seen, this one looks like a bad mod. Steve does not look like he matches the world of Smash Brothers. I'll even say Toon Link in Brawl looked more fitting or something, but Steve, like, I just don't like his attacks. I think he's like one of the weakest fighters. He does have some cool abilities, like it is kind of cool to be able to stack up a bunch of blocks and walk across them, but you have to mine to get them. But I don't like how weak the attacks are. Like his default smash attack barely does any damage. It doesn't even seem like it does any knockback, and I don't know, I just don't like playing as Steve. It's a very experimental character, and I remember thinking he had the hardest adventure mode in the game, or classic mode, whatever. That was one where I kept dying multiple times, and I usually die at least like once or no times at all when playing classic mode. And I have the hardest difficulty settings tanked up on all those, you know. Usually I'm able to beat like each classic mode with a rank of like 9 to 7 or something, but Steve, oh, I kept dying over and over, and I'm sorry, I just was not a fan of playing as Steve. I did think the Final Smash was kind of fun, though, but what makes me laugh about the Final Smash, though, is how is it that runs better than the actual game running on a Switch? If, like, an explosion like that were to happen on Switch, it would cause the game to lag terribly, and here they're able to, you know, match, like, the art style and animations of Minecraft for this Final Smash, and somehow that runs without lag. That is just embarrassing. Again, the over-reliance of so many DLC characters being just generic anime sword wielders just got so boring for me to the point where when Sephiroth was announced, one of the most legendary video game villains of all time, I wasn't so excited. However, I will admit, after playing as the character, though, I honestly thought he wasn't too bad. Yeah, his movement speed is pretty slow, but he makes up for it with that oversized sword. Like, oh man, it is powerful, and I like how his counterattack's also kind of like a reflective barrier, so they kind of spice up the generic sword wielder having the counterattack thing. And then his final smash, though, it's a nice tribute to his ultimate attack from the actual game. And so, yeah, it's a character where the hype kind of died out for me because of the over-reliance on sword wielders, but in the end, I still thought, okay, he was a worthy addition to the series. It's just too bad that too many of the DLC characters are just sword wielders. It just got so tiring, especially when you get so many of them in a row. Speaking of which, I think the next set are, yep. So, Pyra and Mithra, this was definitely, like, this was one that people were hoping for, but not in the way we were getting. I know a lot of people said they wanted Rex and Pyra playable. No one was expecting Pyra without Rex. And with Mithra as well. Of course, they had to tone down their appearances, cover up more of their skin, of course, but... So, again, with them being sword wielders again, you think I would hate them, and honestly, I found myself a little more open to them. I do think their attacks are kind of generic, like, been there, done that, but at least it has a bit more of a style to it. I like how Pyro's got more of, like, these flaming sword gimmicks. Then I played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, so it helps that I know these characters better, and yeah, Pyra and Mithra were fun additions, so I was shocked when I saw they were added to Smash Brothers without Rex. At least Rex is there for both, the, like, victory animations, Final Smash, and even one of your taunts. But I think my only complaint with these two, though, is, yeah, how you swap between them in gameplay. Honestly, I think they would have been better off being Echo Fighters, like having Pyra be a playable character and have Mithra as an Echo Fighter. I wish they You know, like, they had to make a whole deal out of how they had characters who used to transform be their own separate characters now, like, whether it was Sheik and Zelda or Samus and Zero Suit Samus. So, what makes Mithra and Pyra the exception? I just don't... It feels kind of biased. Honestly, I would have rather they just been Echo Fighters, because they do play very similarly. Pyra's obviously the slower and more powerful one. Mithra's the faster, but less powerful one. And it is kind of interesting how they all have their own unique final Smash animations. They're basically just reskins of each other, though, but like they change the dialogue and obviously change the characters around. So you get like two different versions of the same final Smash. Kind of cool, but I would have preferred them being separate characters. But as one who was just so tired of all these generic sword wielders, it was nice to get some, you know, more welcoming ones. Like ones that people actually asked for. Well, it's kind of shocking that it took them this long to finally have a Tekken character in a Smash Brothers game, and so we had Kazuya of all characters. Like, I don't know, I was never really the biggest fan of this character per se, but I will admit he made a great addition, and I love how a lot of his attacks, sound effects, and movements really mimic the Tekken gameplay. Like, I like how even like when it comes to going backwards, like how the character actually backsteps instead of turning around to run in that direction. So a lot of thought and care was put into porting this character over to really make it feel like he jumped from one fighting game to another, and while still trying to maintain the physics of the other fighting game. And the fact that he also has like his devil forms using his attacks is a nice mix, but I don't know. Personally, I was more of a Lily fan. I liked her moveset a lot better, but I can understand why she wouldn't have made a good face character for Smash Brothers. I mean, she's not even that important of a character to begin with. Like I said, I just like her for her moveset. Okay, so down to the last character, and my god, I, along with many others, could not believe my eyes when Sora from Kingdom Hearts, a Disney game, was the final character announced for Smash Bros. Like, this is the character people have hoped and dreamed for, but never saw happening. For a number of reasons. For me, I never saw it happening because I just didn't see Disney allowing Square Enix and Nintendo to get away with this. But somehow, and from what I heard, it was actually Disney and Square Enix who wanted to do it, and it was Nintendo who was against it at first. But somehow they finally struck an agreement, and it must have been so hard, though, because they had, aside from the Mickey Mouse keychain on the Keyblade, the fact they had to omit, like, any reference to Donald Duck or Goofy or Mickey Mouse. Oh, that must have been so hard. It's like, the closest we got was Maleficent's name drop in, the Sakurai Presents trailer and all that, but, Hollow Bastion being the stage. But Sora was a great final addition. I know he's technically a sword wielder, but he was unique enough and well-deserved enough. I like how he has, like, all these spell attacks, and unlike characters like Robin, they don't wear out. His final smash being where he locks the characters behind a door. That is great. I love it. So Sora, he's, you know, he is a bit floaty, though, but I guess that kind of helps him stand out from a character like Cloud, who is another lightweight, fast sword wielder. But, overall, yeah, what a journey Smash Bros. Has been, and I hope this isn't the end of the series. I hope we see more in the future going forward. Even if we don't get as many characters or stages as Ultimate, as long as it encourages them to brainstorm and try to top this game and doing what these games couldn't do, that's all that matters. But whether it's a new director or not, I just want to see this series continue on. Bring in more familiar faces along with ones we haven't seen in the series before but have wanted for so long. More guest characters that we never imagined. You know, Smash Bros. Always had a good sense of either surprising or disappointing people. Take one or the other. But for all the disappointments I've ever had with Smash Bros., I'm still thankful that this series has come through, and I hope to see it live on someday. Well, that's all I have to show for now, so thank you for watching. See you next time, and have a great day.